So the Montreal Canadiens have a surplus of defensemen, right? Like we're talking about pairings. Let's talk about pairings because why not? Right side,
Mhm.
strong side. Noah Dobson, Jaden Struble, Alex Carrier, Caden Gooley, Lane Hudson, Mike Matheson. Like Marco, congratulations. Boom. You're in charge of filling up the defensive lineup card today. Do you want anybody to move to the right side, or are you kind of good with potential? Like I have it drawn up this way: Gooley, Dobson, Hudson, Carrier, Matheson, Struble. That's me. You got someone moving right side, strong side, or are you good with the tandems that are probably going to open up camp?
I think the reason why the Montreal Canadiens don't want to move Mike Matheson is because they don't mind the idea of seeing him play on the right.
Okay.
I think that's, to me, I think that kind of, changes the dynamic, right? The same thing can be said about Lane Hudson. They used
Sure.
Lane Hudson on the right quite a few games. And so when you take into consideration their ability to want to flip one to the right, I personally believe that the player whose game is hurt the least from playing on the right versus the left is Matheson,
Right.
simply because he can skate himself out of that trouble, or if you're a certain of a section of the fan base, skate himself into that trouble. But I think to compensate for handedness, the timing that you would need to compensate for handedness is skating ability. And I feel like if that's the case, then a guy like Matheson would play on the right, and then you'd have something along the lines of like, and we saw it a little bit last year, but like Hudson, Matheson, and then Gooley, Dobson, and then you would have like a Xhekaj Carrier, right? Where Carrier would actually be in the same role that David Savard was last season, but probably to a higher efficacy in being able to kind of bring along a guy like Xhekaj. And in that regard, I think it would benefit a guy like Arber to show off more of his offensive ability, because he does have a cannon. He does have the ability to be aggressive in the offensive zone. And a guy like Carrier is just so sound defensively in the neutral zone that I feel like that combination will work quite well. And then Struble could be your seventh defenseman to start, depending on how camp starts.
I got Struble as my everyday guy. I have him ahead of Arber Xhekaj for me. It comes
My
down to
favorite pairing,
reliability,
yeah,
dependability, and I think he's more
my,
reliable in his own end than Xhekaj is.
my favorite pairing last year. I wouldn't say favorite. My low key appreciative pairing that I saw last year was when Lane Hudson was playing with Jaden Struble. I thought that combo worked surprisingly well, where Struble kind of held down the fort, and then Lane was able to kind of go out and do his thing at 5-on-5. I really did like the combination, but when you're starting the season, you're not playing, blender. You're setting up the organizational depth chart. So to me, the two combinations for Hudson, until a guy like David Reinbacher is ready, is probably going to be either Gooley or Matheson on their offside.
Like, I'm not going to put you in a spot, right? Like, I have my own opinion on things about how I think Arber Xhekaj is being used. And look, I don't have inside information. My read is I don't think Xhekaj is an MSL guy, personally. I don't think he looks at Arber Xhekaj and is comfortable putting him out there situationally. And I wonder about how you see Arber Xhekaj as a defenseman. And I know you mentioned, you would have him right now in your top six, Struble as the seventh extra defenseman today, right? How do you get there? What is it about Arber Xhekaj that puts you on the spot where he's right now one of your six defensemen on any given night?
You look at the profiles on that roster, right? You look at Matheson, you look at Hudson, you look at Dobson, you look at Gooley, Carrier. Those are your five, and you're not moving those five in this moment, right? So if you're starting with those five, not much you can do. So then who's your sixth? Which of the two brings a different element than the five that I just mentioned? And I feel like when you look at the way that they play, Arber brings an element of physicality that is not found throughout that lineup outside of potentially Gooley and, if someone truly pisses off Noah Dobson.
Exactly.
So, in terms of that mean factor, in terms of the guy that can kind of drag players into the fight, I do feel like there's that element of Arber Xhekaj's game that is underrated. But as you get, like, if it, that's to start the season.
Yeah.
Now, if there's defensive mistakes continue and the penalties continue to be taken, like if that gets out of control, then I could definitely understand him getting swapped for a safer bet, a more all-around bet like Jaden Struble. But I think having a guy like Arber Xhekaj in that element, especially as you're going to be kind of, redistributing defensive responsibilities in that lineup, you have no choice at 5-on-5 but to start playing the balancing act. And I feel like a Gooley Dobson combination is just a match made in heaven.
Agreed.
Right? I wouldn't necessarily put Dobson with Hudson, because then you have two more offensive guys, right? Like, I like it because I didn't dislike the combination of Hudson Matheson together. I thought that even analytically they did really well, and I don't necessarily think that it'll be outlandish to see that pairing start the season either. But the idea to me is you could swap Gooley and Matheson from left to right on the top two pairs. But at the end of the day, I feel like they're going to want, when you look at the playoffs, when you look at competitive Stanley Cup final rosters, their top four is basically playing 50 to 52 minutes a game. And then the bottom pair is basically getting between 8 to 10 minutes a game. So the Canadiens want to build up that top four. And, to me, I think it makes more sense to go top four heavy to start and then kind of let these guys come in if there's injuries, if there's tired or this or that. And I feel like if you have a guy like Arber, at least the physical impact of a season, especially with all these back-to-backs, they're going to be swapping in lots of their extra players.
Yeah,
I don't think it makes much of a difference. So
I'll tell you this:
starting lineup different, but we'll have a different conversation in January.
I think it would be a crying shame. And I, as you know, like, if you watch this channel regularly, I am a Mike Matheson guy, but it would be a crying shame if Mike Matheson starts the season with Noah Dobson. Caden Gooley is the future. Caden Gooley, to me, has worked his way up. Caden Gooley is more comfortable with his physical game. As you pointed out, it's my first pair as well. Gooley, Dobson, that's the future. Let's freaking go. Let's see what happens. And, I get it. Arber Xhekaj took almost 120 minutes in PIMS, last season. It'll be curious to see where that goes, right? And part of me is a little concerned. Like, if we're playing the mix and match game, we move on from Gooley, Dobson. So Lane Hudson is obviously defenseman number 3 in this conversation. I think the Canadiens might be in a tight spot if Alex Carrier's a top 4 defenseman, an everyday top 4 playing all of those minutes. That might be the next version of Mike Matheson. You're punching above your weight class. I don't think Alex Carrier's top 4. How do you think the coaching staff massages this tandem?
I think he is top 4 in terms of overall utilization. I think he's a number 4, arguably a number 5 on a Stanley Cup contender, right?
Okay.
But where I see it with him is his value is going to come also on the penalty kill. Like, he is going to be replacing a lot of David Savard's minutes, right?
Got you. Right.
So is Gooley. So is Matheson, who, despite his blunders at 5-on-5, is actually quite effective on the penalty kill, which is so idiosyncratic. Like, those things do not follow each other. Usually, if you're good at 5-on-5 defense, you're good on the penalty kill.
But they were a top 10 PK unit. They were top 10 last year.
Yeah, but then you go and lose Christian Dvorak. You go and lose Joel Armia. You go and lose David Savard, who, granted, fantastic career, but did not necessarily help the team in that department towards the end of the season.
How dare you?
But I know, but I'm sorry. But again, fantastic career, great veteran, and I just want to be respectful to that. But when you look at that mindset, it doesn't matter if Carrier plays on the third pair.
Yeah,
in my honest opinion, because he's going to be getting top utilization on the penalty kill. So at that point in time, what do you want him to do? Well, you want him to come in, complement a guy that is more, that is the opposite of him in style, which is a bigger, meaner, more offensively inclined defenseman, which is what Arber is, right? So I think that meshes better. And then putting Matheson with Hudson, I think those two could skate themselves out of trouble. And they were really strong together when they were placed together. And it's not by chance. They were placed together in mid-December when the Canadiens really started taking their upswing last year. And to me, I think that pairing will work for the time being until the Canadiens can kind of ease David Reinbacher into that role. My 2 cents.
The Canadiens, to me, man, they need to be meaner defensively. And maybe you're right, man. Maybe, I think Jaden Struble can play that role. I don't think he can do it as well as Arber Xhekaj. Noah Dobson can be physical when he wants to. But when I think about what's Reinbacher? Reinbacher's 19? So let's say he makes the team as a 20-year-old next year. Lane Hudson, smaller guy. I think the Canadiens need to address the meanness factor on their blue line. Again, I'm going to repeat myself from, episodes ago. Ben Sherratt, Joel Edmondson, Shea Weber. Nobody wanted to get within arm's lengths of these guys. And then you got a nice little goaltender there, whoever that guy is for the Canadiens, whenever they get there. I think it's an area of need. And Jeff Gordon talked about it. I don't think it's a coincidence. He knows it, man. This guy knows how to build a hockey team. He knows what he's missing.
The only thing I will say is that those guys did also get walked routinely and had to get bailed by Price, right? So
but when they were in close quarters, they won those battles.
Yes and no. And this is kind of where they won those battles against the Winnipeg Jets. Why? Because the Winnipeg Jets at the time were not a team, and still
and what about Vegas?
Not a team, so I'm getting there. Not a team built on speed necessarily. But if you look at that 2021 roster against the Leafs, they were getting walked at 5-on-5, every direction. And Carey Price had 3 goals, it was an average of 2 goals saved above expected per game. Yeah.
I think Phil Danault might have been their best defenseman. He was great on Austin Matthews.
And then you go and look at against Vegas. Vegas was the same kind of situation. And so I'm all about the big defensemen, because if you look at Vegas's cup run, for example, their actual cup run, they were just had towers on the back end. But the element to keep into consideration is that it was the overall quality of depth in their defense, not the size of it, that made them what they were. Like having Theodore and Pietrangelo on your team, those are 2 number 1 defensemen. The Canadiens are basically setting themselves up in the same mold when you have a Hudson and a Dobson, who arguably are 2 number 1 defensemen, one in the making, one already. That's our top pair if you want to really argue the point with Dobson. But, to me, that's how you got to build out. And then having Gouli as your number 3, well, then you have your nucleus. And if David Reinbacher can at least get to 3 and a third or fourth NHL defenseman in the NHL, your top 4 is made. I think there's potential for him to be top pair quality defenseman. Yeah. But even if he hits number 3 status, right? If he's on the same level as Gouli, but on the right side, the Canadiens are in business. That is the element.
When you were talking about Alex Carrier, my own answer to my own question was he's keeping the seat warm for Reinbacher. That's how he'll drop down. Reinbacher I think should fill in that spot. Bob's your uncle, and now you're building a really good top 4. Come on now.
Bob is my uncle.
What's up, Bob?
So the only thing I would add to that is eventually I'd see them extending Carrier on a team friendly deal for him to hold down the third right shot D spot until a guy like, I don't know, Bryce Pickford, Bogdan Kanyushkov or other can kind of come in and take that role.
That's Marco D'Amico. You can follow him at MN D'Amico with RG Media.